Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys having a great week. Hope you guys having a good Wednesday today. Happy hump day. Welcome on in back to The Real. Like I said there, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that. It's the best way you can support this channel and support me. And please leave a comment below up to today's video. Like this video, please. It would really help push this video more in the algorithm. So I'd really appreciate that. And wanted to hop on today, share a few things. The back half of the show, I'm going to give my update on what I've seen, what I've observed about the whole LeBron. Maybe is he coming back to Cleveland? What's going on in L.A.? Dan Hurley came out of nowhere last week, and they offered him a 6-year, $70 million deal, and he turned it down. Where do the Lakers go now? What does this have to do with LeBron? So I'm going to get into all that in the back half of the show. But the first half of the show today, I got a little more than anxiety stuff for you guys. And so I'm going to get into it here. Anxiety and confusion, right? What do I mean by anxiety and confusion? So let's get into it. When I was in my bad anxiety days, for instance, I just felt a lot of confusion. And if you're somebody out there that's going through anxiety, has an anxiety disorder, maybe you just got diagnosed with anxiety disorder, right? There's a lot of confusion oftentimes. Oftentimes with anxiety, people feel very confused because we can't figure out why we feel the way we feel. It can be very confusing, which can lead to frustration, which can lead to more depression, right? And it can lead us to avoiding things, becoming agoraphobic, because that's what it did for me. And that's what it does for a lot of people. And so, a lot of anxiety suffer from this confusion. Why do I feel this way? What am I going to do with it? Will I ever get out of this? Will my life ever go back to normal? Will I ever have the things I desire in life? Well, why did God allow this? Sometimes even people can ask that, especially as believers. We can question, why did God allow certain things sometimes? Why did this happen in my life? Why, right? And so, it really took a toll on me, because when I felt confused and I felt very isolated, it just made things 100 times worse, because I felt stuck. I felt like anxiety was not my life. And what that did was it made me now wear the label of anxiety, or it became my identity. It ran my life. It did everything I did revolved around my anxiety, my symptoms, how I was feeling, and it just took a toll on me. And, it just kind of ruined my life. It took over my life for a long time, for years. And I started to become very angry because of it. I started to become very, like I said, frustrated, angry, depressed, sad. And I had a lot of doubt in a lot of years too. I just had a lot of doubt. And I wondered, will I ever get out of this? And I've learned more now, in my journey especially in the last year. The last year I've come as far as I've ever, gone. I feel like I'm beyond anxiety now. I've overcome it. I still have moments throughout the day, still things I'm working on, get back to in just normal life. But, I feel so much better than I have ever. But it took me a long time. It took me till I really started this podcast, up until that last year. And that year, I started this April 2022. And probably about August of 2021 was when I finally just said, you know what? I need to really face things I was holding off and trying to get rid of, things I needed to confront. A lot of the things I needed to confront were pains from my past, emotional things, baggage I was holding on to, and things I was concealing. I was carrying other people's burdens, and things that people did to me, I was carrying that. And I got to a point after 6 years, to that point where I couldn't do it anymore. I had to get help. I had to get the proper help I needed. I had to let go. God was shook me up that summer in 21. And he said, Joseph, I need you to be who I called you to be. And, spiritually speaking, the devil causes a lot of confusion, because God created a law in the beginning of time. God had a plan for my life, for your life. God set for a plan and for everyone's life. And he has a destiny, right? He has a will. He has law. But the devil tries to come in and cause confusion. He tries to stop that plan. He tries to prevent all that from happening because he doesn't want the good to come out of it. He doesn't want God's plan to come to fruition. He tries to do everything we can to stop God's plan from happening. And oftentimes he attacks us. He tries to attack us spiritually, right? And causes a lot of that confusion. And so once I started to get back more into my spiritual foundation and create a deeper foundation there, rooted myself back into what I knew at 21 years old, 22 years old, 24 now. The more I've grown with God, the more I've been able to see all this, and the more I've been able to find more discernment, which ultimately helped me heal more of my anxiety and it was like God's been showing me the things I need to let go of and shake out of my life and so I can move forward in my life, and so that's what it was for me. But again, that's what helped me cure a lot of that confusion. Was number one, having a spiritual foundation, but also just finding the right help and support. But I'm gonna get into that here in a second because I have 5 things I wrote down today. Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. I might have mentioned some of these. So, but 5 reasons why we feel confused. Number one is why anxiety sufferers feel. I'd say we as anxiety sufferers, why they feel confused. And the number one is we ask ourselves why, right? And I said at the beginning, why has this happened to me? Why am I feeling these things? Why do I think these thoughts? Why did that person do that to me? Why did I have to experience this? Why did that person let me down? Why did this have to happen? Maybe why, God, did you allow this, right? We ask a lot of whys to why. What is the why to our problem? Why are we just ask ourselves why? We feel confused, right? It can be very frustrating, very unsettling, right? I know that feeling. I've been there. If you're somebody that's been there right now, I know where you've been. We ask ourselves why. Number 2 is oftentimes when we can't figure out why, we turn to our phone nowadays. We go to Dr. Google if you're dealing with health anxiety, or we call around the doctors. We seek out too much information. That's number 2, is too much information. Oftentimes too much information, too many, which goes to number 3. So number 2 and 3 go together. I kept them separate, but they go together. So too much information and too many opinions, right? We go on Dr. Google, and Dr. Google says, it might be this, you might got cancer, maybe you got this ailment or that ailment, right? Now we start to wonder what's going on. It takes you till about page 4 or 5 on Google till you realize that it says, maybe this is just anxiety. A lot of times 1 in 4 people that go to the ER are usually there for an anxiety or panic attack, right? Anxiety, panic related problem, not a health related problem. Just think of that. So 1 in 4 people. So, but again, that's meant to drive you to that place, right? It's meant to drive you to that, doctor's appointment, that even though the doctor's already told you you're healthy and you're fine. But again, too much information and too many opinions. Oftentimes, too, people can give you bad advice because people will tell you what worked for them, or you help people that, really didn't. You talk to people that care about you, that mean well. And I mean, it's not that they don't have anything to offer in your situation to help you, but oftentimes you don't really hear a lot of people that have overcome anxiety. You hear a lot of people that have just dealt with it and just learn how to live with it, and it still controls them. And they maybe do a little bit better than they used to, but they just kind of cope with it. They don't heal. They're just coping, either with drugs or alcohol or whatever, pleasure, whatever, things that probably we shouldn't be looking to, right? That are only temporarily, but they're not going to help heal the problem. They may put a Band-Aid on it constantly, but it doesn't heal. And oftentimes people like that can get in deeper holes down the road. The more you try to put a Band-Aid on it, the more deeper that hole you dig. And eventually you have a setback, you hit rock bottom, and now you really find yourself really feeling really confused and stuck. And so too much information, too many opinions, right? And that leads to number 4, which is lack of direction. So you have all this, you're wondering why you're being overwhelmed with all this like really intrusive information. Everyone's giving you their opinion, what you need to do and what worked for them, and blah blah blah. You don't see anybody, but you don't really see any real success stories anywhere. And now you just feel lost. You have a lack of direction. And like I just said, kind of goes what I just said, really. That could lead you to do bad things, or make poor choices, put bad things in your body, do things that aren't really good for you, bad coping mechanisms. And spiritually speaking too, it can really lead you away from God. That's a real pivotal moment. There's somebody out there that's been hurt recently in the last year or going through something. I see this all the time, especially people my age, with hurts and letdowns and things like that. A lot of people nowadays, man, they can't handle it. They just go in the wrong direction. They lead further away from their faith and from the relationship with the Lord. And they start going and looking to things of the world instead to satisfy them in the moment, and this kind of this rebellious attitude. But again, that's also digging that hole. You know what I mean? And so, and the fifth thing is you become hyper focused on your symptoms. You're just somebody that's just so constantly hyper fixated on your symptoms and wondering, why do I feel this in my arm? Why do I feel this in my leg? Why do I feel this in my stomach? Why does my head feel like that? Right? The whole thing. You guys know what I'm talking about, the tension and everything. We become so fixated on our symptoms that we don't really take time to sit down and wonder, why am I thinking these things, right? We don't try to get to the root cause. We just focus on the symptoms and, oh my gosh, I feel like this, and right. And this also goes kind of with number 2 as well. We try to get too much information. Now we're on Dr. Google again, or calling the doctor 100 times and asking why. And, these kind of all go together, right? But becoming hyper focused on your symptoms can really take you down a path it's a never ending, just vicious cycle, really. Because you're over analyzing things. You're constantly you don't believe the doctors, you don't believe anybody. And now, what a lot of times too, this is also from a lack of conviction, in my opinion, a lack of maybe a spiritual foundation, a lack of conviction, a lack of belief, confidence. You know what I mean? There's no belief there. Somebody that can be just swayed so constantly, to the point where you don't even believe people. What I mean, swayed is just, you could be swayed in many different directions because you don't have a direction, you don't have a foundation, you don't have a plan for your life, you don't have a way to deal with this, right? And I'm not picking on anybody, because I used to be that person. I didn't see any success stories for a while, and I feel like I really had a plan for my life. I was kind of just winging it. I was just taking medications, and I'd go to the doctor here and there, and they said I was fine. I was doing just real basic talk therapy, and I didn't know, my parents didn't know. Nobody knew, and I was still very focused on my symptoms constantly, but felt certain things, and I would have setbacks constantly. I would do good for a while, and a major setback would happen, right, due to a panic attack or something like that. And so I used to be that person right there on the screen, those 5 things. That used to be me. Yeah, and so I know what that's like, right? But what were 5 things that helped me combat all these things? So number 1 would be, break down that why. Okay, why am I thinking these thoughts, Joseph? Joseph, why are you thinking about your health constantly? Why are you thinking about those things of the past? What hurt you? Right? What information, is this information about my health that I heard from hypochondriacs back? Is that not true? Maybe that's not true. Why am I feeling this way? Right? I had to I had to get to the root cause of that why. Why? Okay, I'm dealing with anxiety. Why? And I had to be honest with myself. And I had to be honest with people, right? And I had to open up, and I had to say, okay, because honesty is very key in this first step. If you're not willing to be honest about anything with yourself, even, or with other people, you're not going to get over this. You're never going to be able to get over your anxiety, because you're still holding on to things. You're afraid to let go of something, right? And oftentimes that could be your why. You're afraid of letting go of certain things. You're afraid to let go of the dream you had that maybe God shut the door on. You're afraid to let go of what happened to you and move forward in your life, because maybe you're seeking vengeance on people, or maybe you're angry about something. And that's okay. It's okay to be angry. If somebody did something wrong to you, that's okay. Or maybe something didn't go your way and you're upset about it. Or maybe you're a little down. Maybe you're mourning or whatever. You're grieving something. I don't know. That's okay. But you have to understand why you feel that way, and that it's normal. But also, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stay in that place and let it control your life? Or you could say, you know what, screw this. I'm going to get back to living my life and move forward and trust. That's the key word there, trust. That God has a plan for me, that I can do the things I want to do with my life. And that leads to number 2, establish support. Find a good counselor. Go to your doctor, find a good doctor that you trust that will tell you from the get-go, okay, Joseph, you're healthy. You're fine. Now move on. Let's go get you some help. That's what my doctor did for me. The doctor that helped me. I went to the doctor. She was like, okay, Joseph, you're fine. Your health's fine. This is all just anxiety. Go find good health. Go find good counseling and support, right? Go find a good plan. This is a anxiety problem. All right. That's what this is. It's not a health problem. It's not any of that. You're going through a little battle of anxiety right now. You will get over it. Right. So find a good doctor, find a good counselor, or somebody, a coach, somebody that can help you, somebody that has seen success and helped people succeed over it or has done it themselves. Right. Like the anxiety guy did for me. Right. Like the counselor I worked with, he did it with so many people and he did it himself and helped me. Right. And have people with you that are willing to be there, like that you trust, whether it's maybe 2 to 3 people. Right. People that are willing to work with you, help you get where you need to go. People that care about you, right? There's people out there that want to help you. They want to see you succeed. It's okay to have support. It's okay to have help, right? Obviously, at the end of the day, you do the work. It's up to you. You're the one that takes the steps, but it's okay to have people there to help you along the way, to encourage you, that you can talk about wins with. You can talk about, maybe lessons with. I don't like to say losses. It's wins and lessons. Maybe you can talk about certain lessons with people, you know what I mean? And have good people that will help you, especially in your spiritual realm as well. People that are walking very close with God, right? That can really help lead you in that direction. Have the same kind of that foundation spiritually as you, right? That can help lead you on the way. I have many people now in my life that God brought in my life that I needed, that helped me with that walk in that spiritual realm, have overcome anxiety, you know what I mean? That helped build me that community that I needed. Because when I was isolated away, I didn't have that community, and I suffered from that. And it really made me feel even more isolated, obviously. But it also made me kind of overanalyze what I was going through. If that makes sense. Like it made me overanalyze what happened to me. It made me overanalyze the anxiety I was going through, because I started to feel like I was the only person that went through it or is going through it. Right? It's okay to reach out, and it's okay to have people around you that can help you, that want to help you, but also have probably been in the same shoes you've been in, and want to see you succeed. So reach out to that. And number 3 is have a suited plan for you. Everybody's healing is different, right? Let me get a sip of this tea here. Ooh, that's some good tea. But everybody's timeline for healing is different. Everybody's way of healing is different. Everybody is on their own different journey. And so have a plan that's suited for you, right? Whatever you're going through with working with your counselor, with your coach, with your support group, have a plan that works for you, that you believe in, that you want to do, right? That has goals in it, that leads you towards bigger goals in your life where you want to be. I'm going back to work now, right? I'm going to get this done, right? Or I want to have this in my life eventually, right? Have those bigger goals, but have also a plan suited for you that takes those smaller steps to help lead you towards that bigger goal, right? This is all very good. And it's good to have those smaller steps. The smaller steps is ultimately what's good. The smaller steps is what you remember the most in the journey. And ultimately those smaller steps, even though they seem small to you because you're looking at the bigger goal you want in your plan of where you want to be, but the smaller steps is where you really appreciate the journey and where you start to really become your true self again, and where God really starts to lead you and guide you in the direction he wants you to go, right? And number 4 is stay consistent. So stay consistent with that plan. Don't feel down. Setbacks are inevitable sometimes. It's okay if you have a setback. It doesn't mean you're going backwards, right? You don't go 60 miles an hour down the freeway looking backwards, right? You just don't do that, right? You keep looking forward and you trust your plan. The key word there, trust. Stay consistent, right? And number 5 would be sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice certain things to get where you want to go. And, in order to reach higher goals in life, to reach higher places in life you want to get to, you don't think maybe you never thought you can get to, you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice maybe sometimes certain relationships that aren't healthy for you. You have to sacrifice certain habits, right? Sacrifice certain things on the weekends or whatever. You have to sacrifice certain things that aren't healthy for you, aren't going to help you where you are right now. So also you know what that is. I had to make plenty of sacrifices along my journey, many, many, many sacrifices. And I look back now. At the time, it hurt. You know what I mean? I was kind of like, man, I felt like I was missing out. But looking back now, the things God sacrificed out of my life, whether it was in high school, college, relationships, potential relationships, whatever it was, I'm glad God spared me from trouble and sacrificed the things out of my life because He spared me from trouble, right? And I look back now and I say, man, I really didn't miss out on anything. I actually was right where I needed to be, and God has you God had me right where I needed to be all along, and I really am living out the dream I've always envisioned when I was a kid. And I really am living out God's will for my life, and I'm starting to see that more and more. Right. And you'll start to see that too, but you have to sacrifice. Sometimes you have to tell yourself no. Sometimes you have to tell the people no. Right. It's okay to sacrifice. You ask any great athlete or entertainer or whatever, whoever you look up to, they all sacrifice to get to that high level where they are now. Right. They didn't just get there in a straight line and, have all these great things along the way. A lot of times you have to go low before you go high. So God will take you low before He takes you high. So you have to sacrifice certain things. And so ultimately, you know what that is, and you have to break that down and write that down for yourself. So, but sacrifice, very key. So that's my take on that today for anxiety, confusion. Those are my 5 things that help me. Let me know what you guys think about those 5 things, and maybe you have something to add to it. Please leave it below. We'll put it in the comment below. So I'm going to take a quick break real quick. When I come back, I got another video I'm going to play by Gilbert Arenas that kind of goes along with this today. Then I'm going to get into the LeBron Cavs mayhem. So we'll get into that around the corner next.
Because people put labels on you, so sometimes people believe them. After a lot of, constantly people saying, oh, you're this, you're that, you'll never do this, you'll never be like that, whatever. Sometimes
I think this is important. I wrote this down right here because this is key for people our age, especially somebody like me who's 23, single. Is don't wear the labels the world might say you are. And so people could tell me in my life, some of the things in my personal life, obviously because we're good friends, but certain things maybe I haven't achieved yet because of what happened to me, just because of circumstances. But if I were to keep wearing that label of I don't have X, Y, and Z yet, or if I would go by the world standards and the pressure, and sometimes even your own family, and he even said in the sermon earlier, he said sometimes the wisest thing for you to do, nobody will agree with you, literally nobody, and that could be your own, it could be everybody around you, but as long as you listen to the voice and you can feel that conviction, why should you be afraid? Why not? What's there to be? What I mean? That should give you somewhat of a confidence, and it's hard to do because when everybody around you is telling you what to do, you can start to wear I could have started to wear those labels and started to I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today though. I can tell you that I'd be in a deep hole. So I guess kind of what we talked about this in our last episode we did too, back I think it was like in October.
Yeah.
About being bold and courageous, and because that's really what it is. I think surrendering, it takes a leap of courage, of faith. And so I guess kind of what are the things that have helped you in your past, or what some words of encouragement people out there, especially our age, watching about, being bold and courageous and not wearing your past, not wearing the labels and all
that? It's something that's, it's easier said than done, but you definitely have to try to surrender. Surrender it all to God. Giving it to Him, laying at the foot of the cross, and just trusting Him through it all. Because people put labels on you, so sometimes people believe them. After a lot of, constantly people saying, oh, you're this, you're that, you'll never do this, you'll never be like that, whatever. Sometimes you believe them, after hearing it enough, and then at the end of the day, it's just lies. but you have to trust that, you know, Christ is going to set you free, as He said He will. You just got to take the first step and surrender it to Him first before He takes it, because He's not going to do it forcefully. He's going to do it. He wants you to take the first leap of faith.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the Real. Let's get into this next. I got my icebreakers too. I made those. I like these little strawberry mint. Not a sponsor, by the way, but hey, icebreaker. You see this? Anybody icebreaker? If you see it, you want to send me some. You know, we can make a deal. But but no. A little more than anxiety thing here, kind of. Gilbert Arenas, former NBA player, spoke on a show earlier this week, and he kind of talked about a time in his life where he lost the love of the game of basketball. I mean, knows Gilbert Arenas' story. Was a great player, one of my favorite players growing up. I've become more of a fan of his game as I got older, but was definitely ahead of his time. But I think Gil. Anybody knows Gil's story? Obviously, it got cut short because of injury, but also he had the gun incident in 2010, I believe it was 2009, 2010, where he brought a gun in the locker room, which broke the team policy, NBA policy. You can't bring a gun in the arena, obviously. So, he basically got ran out of the league after that in a way. But also, a lot of it was due to injury as well. He was damaged goods, which he's even said out of his own mouth. They gave him a $111 million contract, and he just had bad knees, had like 2, 3, 4, I think like 3 or 4, major knee surgeries within like an 18-month span. So he was becoming damaged goods as well. But he told this story about how he lost love for the game of basketball and how he got back into it. And I thought it was really cool because it kind of reminded me of my story as well. When I left high school and I was isolated away, like I mentioned earlier, like I mentioned many times in the show. And I kind of lost a love of just being around people. I didn't want to be around people. I kind of just lost a love for everything in my life, to be honest with you. Just I had my family, my intermediate family, but what I was so used to, what I used to love and I did every single day was I just started to hate it. And I didn't want to go anywhere back near to it again. You know what I mean? I just wanted to isolate away from it. I wanted to stay away from it. I didn't want to go back to that old life ever again because I felt people hurt me. And I was very angry and bitter as well. And I was depressed when I was going through it. And so Gilbert kind of went through the same thing with the Wizards because that's when that gun incident happened. He was a member of the Washington Wizards, and he kind of just felt angry and pissed off at the league, and because he felt like he did 100, he felt like he did 99 things right, but he made one mistake, and now he felt like he was the enemy, right? And so he got ran out of Washington. They got rid of him, and then he went to Orlando. He was well, towards the end of Washington, he was very bitter. He grew out his face, his facial hair. He's like, put this on a billboard. He was very rebellious and just wanted to get out of Washington, hated the organization. I was very angry at him for how they treated him and everything, how he felt they treated him, and with all that, with the gun incident. And so he goes to Orlando, and he doesn't want, his story in Orlando, he says he had a house he was renting down in Orlando. And after all that stuff happened, people just trashed him in the public, and he became the most hated athlete in the world, basically, at one point. And Tiger Woods had his thing going on out the golf course with all that stuff, and Gilbert's story overshadowed Tiger Woods' story, took it out of the news. And Gilbert said he was renting a house, and he didn't want to be around people. He just wanted to go to practice or the game, and he said he would go straight home, and he tinted the windows double black in his house so nobody could see in, so nobody ever knew he lived there. Right? It kind of reminded me of like agoraphobia in a way, like a guy who's depressed and agoraphobic, and and then eventually down the road he went to Memphis, and he just said once he got to Memphis, he saw other guys who had that same passion he used to have, and he goes, you know what, I'm not gonna take a roster spot from somebody. So he walked away, and he just said, screw the game of basketball, and he stayed away for years. And ultimately, what got him back into the game, though, was the guy who replaced him in Washington. When he left Washington had the number 1 pick in the draft, a guy named John Wall. Everybody knows who John Wall is. And John Wall hit Gilbert up and said, hey, Gilbert, you're my big guy. You're my big brother. Could you please help me with my game? I want to get better. I look up to you. And Gilbert said it was the guy who replaced him reaching out to him and hitting him up And Gilbert said, you know what? Maybe I do need to go back to the game of basketball. Maybe I do. And the guy reaching out to him and replaced him, reaching out to ask him for his help, is ultimately what helped him heal that anger with the Wizards. And now he's back with the Wizards organization. You know, he's good on good terms with them now. He's Wiz Nation and all this, and now he is to this day as well. But it's kind of cool story how he went through all that and it healed him, because it reminded me of my story, what I went through. And I went through that actually within the last 2 years. Within the last year, there was 2 people I was upset with when I left high school, right? 2 of them were my coaches. And, well, 3 people rather. 1 was a community, 2 were coaches, right? 1 coach in particular I was really upset with. And as I started to heal more of my anxiety, and when I did the podcast, I saw people's reaction, and just the more I reconnected with my friends, and I saw the love people really had for me, and the grace God spared upon me, it made me reach out. And I reached out to those guys, and I expressed how I felt, but I also said I forgave them, and I forgave them in my heart. And that one coach in particular reached back out to me and he apologized for what happened, admitted where he went wrong, said he was immature at that time, and felt really bad about the incident, and said, I'll make sure I'll never do this again to another kid. We talked for a little bit, and well, he broke down what he felt and where he is now, and I broke down everything where I am now. But it healed me forever, because it took that anger out of me. You know what I mean? It helped me to let go of that and realize, you know what? Hey, man, I don't know what that guy was going through at that time. Who am I to blame? Nobody knew around me what was going on with me at that time anyway. So, and what happened to me had to happen, because had that not happened to me, there's a lot of dominoes that people around my life that wouldn't be possibly not here today. Just leave it at that. But, or be in a bad spot. God had to use me to reach other people, and I'm proud of that. And so, and I'd go through all that pain again just to hear people, how they talk today and how they feel today. And so, yeah, but not to get emotional, but no, but I mean, it was really cool to hear the story by Gil, because it really reminded me of that with my coaches that I went through when I was at, I almost said the school's name, but when I was at that's place, I don't want to say the name just for certain reasons. I don't know, but just leave it at that. But you guys, for most of everybody watching knows what I'm referring to. So, but yeah, I'm cool with both those coaches now. And I love one of those coaches dearly, actually. I always was, even when I left, I still love him dearly, and I root for him today, and hope he, gets another head coaching gig here soon. But, and the other coach as well. Now, him and I are great, and I support him, and pray for him, and moved on now in my life. You know what I mean? It was like a huge burden taken off my life, and it just healed me. You know what I mean? That anger just went away. And even with the community of certain people at that place, that I haven't really been able to talk to some of those people ever. But in my heart, I forgave and I moved on. I just said, you know what? You just have to accept people for who they are. And, it ain't personal. It is what it is. It wasn't nobody's fault. And so that's helped me move forward in that area. But not much you can do about it in that aspect. So there's just sometimes you have to just unilaterally forgive with God and just say, you know what? It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't what I thought it was in my head. I got to move on now in my life. And so here's Gil's story. And it's a real quick video, and I'll play that. And I'll move on to the LeBron thing. If I can get this on the full screen here. There we go.
When I was in Orlando, I threw up every single day. He didn't like the game, didn't like the idea of being a basketball player. You can see, I don't want to be a part of y'all organization no more. You don't even want to put this face on the billboard. Go to Orlando thinking I'm about to get a fresh start. Get served on national TV. That baggage came right there. When I was in Orlando, I threw up every single day. Yeah, I was waking up, throwing up, don't know why. I tinted all my house windows that I was renting so nobody knew that I lived there. I didn't want to see people. John Wall hit me. Man, since you've been watching the games, which now he knows I didn't watch. He said, how can I get better? And then when he said it, I was like, oh, shit. Like, he's hitting me because he wants some real information. But then I had to go on Google, type in John Wall game, and said for 5 hours, watch it. And good. I see why they drafted him #1. And then from there, it was like, damn, like I miss it because he hit me. The dude who replaced me hit me for advice. The anger I had for the whole situation was gone.
Thank you. Well, thank you, John Wall.
Good job, John Wall.
And that's really awesome. That's really cool to see and hear. You don't hear stuff like that all the time, and I can really relate to that, like I said. And it's funny too. He said there. Before I'll take another quick break real quick because I gotta fix something. But it's funny what he said there though. Once John Wall hit him up, he started to have that, man, I really do have a passion for the game still. It still is deep down inside of me. And I've noticed that with myself. Maybe if there's some place in your life, not sports related, maybe you guys have some other passion or with people, maybe you can relate to this and leave it in a comment below if you wouldn't mind. Be awesome. But, I've started to develop a passion now too of wanting to get back into games as well. Football and basketball, maybe baseball, maybe primarily basketball and football is my two main loves. And I have a thing now as I've gotten older, as I'm getting older and just healing and especially after I, got over that stuff with those coaches and things from my past and healed those relationships, kind of like Gil did. I have kind of a passion now for coaching again or just getting back involved with the sports. Like, for a while, it's kind of like I'd never do it again. I'm done with that. That was part of my life. I'm over it. I'll just be a fan of the teams that I like. But, I was kind of over the whole thing. But deep down inside, I always would try to I'd still help guys on the side, high schoolers, guys that I knew, during those years. Now, I was trying to help them out and give them advice. And it was still there inside of me. But now that I've kind of overcome all those things, just like Gil did, I kind of have that passion now myself. And so, it's funny. I went and stood at my old stomping grounds, Ross Park. This was back in September. And I'm standing there at Ross Park. It was a Saturday. They had football games going on. And I was just standing there and just watching watching these games go on. It just reminded me of what I used to feel on those Saturdays as a little kid. And I remember just standing there. I was like, you know what? I need to get back in this and get back to, I need to go share the lessons. And I want other kids to experience the same thing that I experienced. Because I feel like nowadays coaching is at an all-time low. And I think a lot of kids are missing out on what they could have because of that. And just because of people not really having the same care and the same drive for the programs as people that I grew up around did and my coaches had. And so I was standing there watching that and it kind of brought a tear to my eye almost in a way. I was getting emotional standing there because I was just like, number one, it brought back so many memories standing there at Ross Park on a Saturday in the fall and just smelling the concession stand, hearing the names being announced on the thing and watching the kids play, the scoreboard. It just reminded me what that felt like. Obviously our games as we got older, especially on the varsity black team that won the national championship, which is right there. Our games were always electric, and we had a lot of people at our games, probably more than the local high school teams did. Be honest with you, but we just had this drive, but also just this. It was almost undescribable. We just had this love of the game we all had for it and love for each other. And I think that's missing nowadays. And so, part of my passion is getting back in to help kids see that they can, have that same feeling. You can achieve those goals. You can be kids from Cuyahoga Falls and go try to win a national championship because I've done it. A lot of kids don't dream of that. They just try to aim for the lowest, league championship possible, or, they don't think they can win more than 5 games or they can do better things for themselves as players and as people, because it helps you when you get older. And so, but that's the people that helped me grow up. My coaches, they instilled that into me and helped me believe that because they believed it themselves, And so, it reminds me of one of my football coach, John Potok. Shout out to Coach John. Love you, Coach. And you guys seen I've had Zach on the show. His son, who's one of my best friends in life, who just had his son, by the way. Him and Ashley. Shout out to you guys. Baker is now. Has been born. He's now in the world now. And so he's here finally. So I can't wait to meet him. I haven't met him yet, but I can't wait to see Baker. So shout out to them. But, John, though, there was nothing John, how do I describe? John was like a guy, or he is a guy that's very creative in his mind, but he also he doesn't. There's nothing he believes he can't do. And so, but that passion he had, because that mindset he had, that passion went into our team, and that's why our team achieved the things we achieved, right? And we did the things we did as kids growing up playing sports because we had a guy who led the way as our coach who had that same passion. And so, I feel that now in with myself, and kind of I need to get back and start coaching again, get back involved with the games. And but again, none of that would have happened, just like Gil said, had I not reached out and let go and forgave and healed and let that stuff go. And so it's kind of cool there. That story, I thought that was unique because I could relate to it, and maybe you guys can too. And so yeah, and again, shout out to Zach and Ashley with Baker, the birth of Baker this past weekend. So I can't wait to meet him. And yeah, it's really awesome. But let's see here. All right, so when I come back, I got the LeBron / Cavs news / update, whatever you want to call it, and we'll wrap it up. So I'll be back in a second.
It's interesting to me. God really did have that plan for me throughout this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It was simply just up to me when I was able to stop playing God. I thought I was the one making things happen. No, God is in control. A saying my dad used to always say was, man plans while God laughs. I had a plan for my life. Like, I was going to be, I'm talking about from as soon as I can remember my first thought, I'm going to be in the NFL. I'm going to be, a quarterback. Right. I'm going to, my life was made.
I'm going to have all this money. I'm going to get any girl I want. I'm going to have all these cars. Yeah, that's going to be good.
I'm talking Beyonce is going to be like, hey, what are you doing today?
What's up?
Then Rihanna tomorrow. Like, it was this plan I had for my life. And as I got older, obviously the plans got smaller, but I still continue to plan. Something that I do now, and I would recommend everybody doing, every single night when I pray, what I used to do was say, God, allow me to pass this test. God, allow me to, meet this girl. God, allow, this date to go well, this day to go well. When I go to sleep every single night, what I pray for is for God's will to be done. Because he obviously knows what he's doing. I don't. Because if I knew what I was doing, I would be, I wouldn't be talking about Baker on the Browns. I'd be on the Browns right now. If I knew if I followed my plan, Beyonce would be hitting me up. She hasn't hit me up. I must have missed that call or something.
She don't want some of Bake?
Right. She doesn't want the AMP producer. She has a billionaire husband or something. It's interesting to me. God really did have that plan for me throughout this entire time. It was simply just up to me when I was able to stop playing God. I thought I was the one making things happen. No, God is in control. From the moment I wake up, God is in control. So
all right, welcome back. Time to get to the LeBron Cavs. I'm sure many of you guys have been waiting for. I've had a lot of people actually hit me up. What do you think's going on? You think he's coming back? What's going on with all this stuff now? I've been staying quiet on this for the last week for a reason, because I think when it comes to LeBron, you have to stay patient. You have to kind of read all between the lines. You have to see what's going on. And so I've been kind of sitting back, taking notes, like I do, and collecting all the evidence and all the things that I think could be leading towards a sign of where he could be going, what could be going on with the Cavs and the Lakers and LeBron. Is this all connected? So I'm gonna get into it. So if you guys, a lot of you guys know the Lakers offered Dan Hurley a contract, the UConn head coach at UConn. He's won back-to-back national championships, top guy in the sport right now. Offered him a 6-year, $70 million deal, and he turned down the Lakers. And I laugh because it's just like, man, the Lakers have become an absolute tire fire, in my opinion. I mean, they have so many cooks in the kitchen. When Jeannie bust, the Rambuses, Rob Pelinka, Magic was there, and Magic left, said, I'm not going to be here. You got LeBron involved, Clutch Sports. I mean, what the hell is Anthony Davis? I mean, there's so many cooks in the kitchen in LA, and there's just so much dysfunction for the last, 4 years, especially since they won the little bubble chip, the Mickey Mouse reign. So just a lot of dysfunction. I think really the whole time LeBron's been there. It's just been a lot of dysfunction, a lot of up and down. I'm not saying that's LeBron's fault fully. I think a lot of it's just the situation itself, the mix has not been good at times. But so Dan Hurley turns him down. Where do they go from here? And what does this have to do with LeBron, with the Cavs? So I'm going to get into it. So let's start with the Lakers side of it. Several players, right? Several Lakers players reportedly don't like JJ Redick's attitude. Why do I bring up JJ Redick? Well, now it says there it prompted the team to reconsider Dan Hurley for the head coaching role. Shams Charania came out and said the Lakers were zeroing in on JJ Redick, right? And we did a live a week ago when that report came out. A week ago today, that report came out. And I said on that live towards the end with Mike and Jersey that I thought it was kind of BS. And I thought, Shams Charania is connected to Clutch Sports. Obviously, LeBron wants probably JJ Redick to be the head coach for the Lakers. But I wasn't buying it. And then the next day, Woj comes out with a Woj bomb and says Dan Hurley's the guy they want. He's been their guy all along. They're making a run at him. Now there's speculation because Dan Hurley turned down the job. Like I just got a thing on my phone today during the show. My boy Whitlock's doing a show on it tonight. Did ESPN's agent Wojnarowski use the Lakers to get Dan Hurley a pay raise? So basically, did Dan Hurley use the Lakers to get a pay raise? That's a fair question. But I do think the Lakers wanted Dan Hurley. If the Lakers really wanted JJ Redick, they would have hired JJ Redick by now, right? He was supposed to be zeroed in on him. They had him for an interview 2 weeks ago. You're 2 weeks away from the draft today. And this is what you got. Your biggest star, your franchise, he's going to be a free agent. He's opting out. He's going to be a free agent, according to Rich Paul, his agent. You have no youth on your team. You have no real direction. You just got bounced in the first round. You got swept the year before by the same team. You're in a loaded Western Conference. You have no draft capital. And you're 2 weeks out from the draft. You don't even have a head coach. Right? And you got the whole Bronny aspect of it with connected to the player that's going to be a free agent, his son. So I don't get it. I don't see why the Lakers would, not hire JJ Redick already if they really wanted him. But again, like this report says, a lot of it's probably because, the players on the team don't really want JJ Redick. It's just like Udonis Haslam said on ESPN. It'd be a very cynical locker room. If they hired JJ Redick as their head coach, that would be a very cynical locker room because everybody would say, okay, is this what LeBron wants or is this what JJ wants? Right? It's not a good, healthy locker room to have. And also, Anthony Davis doesn't want JJ Redick. He wants James Borrego over JJ Redick. But guess who James Borrego interviewed with yesterday, folks, and is the leading candidate for the team he interviewed with? The Cleveland Cavaliers. James Borrego is most likely now, in my opinion, going to be the leading candidate for the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? And so the Lakers now have to pivot. They have to go back to James Borrego. They met with James Borrego twice. They didn't hire him yet either. Right? They went out and got Dan. So how does James Borrego, they try to go out and get Dan Hurley. So how does James Borrego and JJ Redick now feel about that Lakers job? They probably are kind of pissed. They probably don't want it as much anymore. And the Cavs job is quite frankly just more attractive than the Lakers job. It's not even close. So anybody with some knowledge will understand that. It's like I heard some people on ESPN today saying, well, I think the Lakers job might be better because we don't know. Donovan Mitchell's probably going to leave. Well, if you actually pay attention, do your job, and do reports on ESPN, people, which a lot of people don't. They're just up there just talking. If you actually do your damn job, you would see a lot of the reports and the signs point towards Donovan Mitchell is coming back. It's probably pretty much done. But again, it's Cleveland. We always got to, nobody wants to be here, right? Everybody wants to leave and blah, blah, blah. But everything's all roses and flowers in LA all the time, isn't it? Nah, it's complete opposite in this situation. LA is a shit show. And the Cavs are in great position right now, and they know it. And they know what people in the media, I've noticed this, people in the mainstream media do not want to admit where this could be heading. They don't want to admit it because I get it. The Lakers being what they've been the last 6 years generates a lot of attention globally for their brands, for their businesses, right? Because the Lakers are a big brand. It's one of the biggest brands in all sports. You take LeBron off that team, not as much interest is there, right? Put LeBron back in grimy old Cleveland where they don't want to go and cover the team. They don't want to fly there in the winter and cover the games, right? Because it's too cold for them. And I get it can be too cold, but that's their biggest fear is LeBron leaving LA. Because you take LeBron out of LA, and the Lakers are afraid of it too because LeBron generates them a lot of money. That's why you saw that report yesterday on the internet from a respected NBA reporter who, after that news came out about Dan Hurley rejecting the job, now a lot of executives and owners around the league are saying the Lakers are they might be the poorest franchise in the league, ownership-wise. I mean, they might be the poorest one in the league that they can't. I think the report said that the Lakers cannot financially compete with the other teams in the modern NBA. And you kind of just saw that again. I mean, they got that 6 years, $70 million. That's it. You got to give him more than that. He would only been the 6th highest paid head coach in the league. If you're going to bring a guy like Dan Hurley, his cachet and who he is out of college, you got to give him more than 6 years and $70 million to be the 6th highest paid coach. He's going to get that more. He's going to make that more at UConn when he resigns his deal. He knew that all along. He didn't have to leverage UConn. UConn's going to sign him. Why would they want him to leave? You know what I mean? Like, that's even the damn governor of Connecticut came out and said, we will make sure he does not leave. We cannot let this happen. Like, he means that much to that state in that area in the Northeast. Like, they were not trying to not pay him his money. He didn't need to leverage anybody, right? He didn't have to do that. He actually was interested in the job, but the Lakers wanted him more than he wanted them, right? So clearly they didn't want J.J. Redick. They're not that high on him. The players, like you said, there don't want him besides LeBron. They had James Borrego in hand. AD wants James Borrego. Rich Paul told you that you need to focus more on AD than LeBron James at this point, which is there's a lot that went into that, and I explained all that recently. There's a lot there in that statement, in my opinion, is what I meant to say. In my opinion, there's a lot there in that statement. But you had the guy AD wants. You didn't hire him yet. Now he's in Cleveland yesterday, and he's a leading candidate, probably going to get the Cavs job. And, you know, if you don't think Dan Gilbert is waiting there to just stick the dagger in the Lakers by outbidding them, remember the thing I played on my show 2 weeks ago with Brian Windhorst on the Dan Patrick Show where he said the Cavs, and he mentioned James Borrego. How funny is that? If the Cavs and the Lakers got in a bidding war with James Borrego, the Cavs would probably win that because they have more money and are willing to spend more ownership-wise. Here we are now, and the Cavs are just a more attractive job too, like Wendy said. Here we are now. All that's come true. The J.J. Redick facade things, it's kind of gone away, and it's dead and it's gone away. It ain't coming back. You know, if they hired J.J. Redick at this point, even if he took the job somehow, I mean, it's an absolute shit show waiting to happen. And so here we are now, and James Borrego is about to take the job with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dan Gilbert's about to put the dagger in the Lakers. And where do the Lakers go from here? What do they have? Sam Cassell is the other guy maybe they could hire. But guess what? He's assistant coach right now for the Celtics trying to win a championship. He ain't got time to do no interview right now. And you're 2 weeks off from the draft. This is what you're going to present to LeBron? I don't see it. I don't see how would LeBron, and LeBron the other night on Twitter doubled down on people who said he doesn't want to, and I questioned it at times too, I'll be honest. People on the show questioned, is winning his number one priority anymore? Does he have that drive to win? Well, according to him the other night, take his word for it, whatever you believe it or not, that he does have that drive to win. And you can't tell me LeBron doesn't want to go out and try to get one more championship with his son in a storybook ending. But where can he get that done at, right? Because the Lakers are a mess. You know, the Lakers are a mess. He ain't going to get it done there, right? You got AD, who's almost 30 now. He's, he's broken down. He's got a lot of injuries. And they played 75 games this year. And AD is a great player. Don't get me wrong. I think when AD's on, he's probably a top 5 player in the league, possibly. But he's in that type of category of a talent-wise and a player, that caliber of a player. But even when AD was full go, they were still losing games. They just don't have a good roster. They don't have good help. They don't have any youth. They don't have any outside of Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, who are very inconsistent. They just don't. They have no draft capital. They gave it all away. What do they have? And you think taking Bronny with the 17th pick is justifiable in LA with the Lakers, who is championship or bust? That's the standard. It should be the standard, allegedly. No, you can't. You can't take Bronny with the 17th overall pick. That ain't happening. You just can't do it. And people are saying, well, they'll just take him at 55. Like, whoa, you'll take him at 55. Well, Rich Paul said they want Bronny. They don't want Bronny to have no more than a guaranteed deal. And now all of a sudden, amidst all this over the weekend, this is in an article. Plenty of fans will try to read something into James working out. This is referring to Bronny James. Bronny James only worked out for the Lakers and the Suns. Now, Rich Paul says he's going to work out for more teams. Interesting. James working out for more teams if it happens. Maybe the Lakers are wavering on their desire to unite him with his dad in the NBA. Maybe Bronny himself is cooling off on the idea. Perhaps the odds are increasing of LeBron leaving the West Coast behind, so a team-up would happen elsewhere. Perhaps the odds are increasing of LeBron leaving the West Coast behind, so a team-up would happen elsewhere. And ever since Monday when Dan Hurley turned down the job, folks, you've seen this more and more all over the internet in the last 48 hours. Obviously, today's about Jerry West. And I want to say condolences to the legendary Jerry West passed away today. Condolences to his family, the West family, the logo. As a young basketball fan, I've actually always loved listening to Jerry West when he was on TV, the way he talks about the game. And, I listened to when he talked about Kobe when Kobe passed. And I'm a big Jerry West fan. He can tell you he's just a great guy. And he's one of the greatest executives in the history of sports. So shout out to the logo, Jerry West, and rest in peace. And legend. But and man, he put some teams together. My gosh, everywhere that guy went. You want to turn a franchise around? You want to turn your team around? Just hire Jerry West. He'll have it done. He'll have that thing turned around in no time, just like that. Shout out to Jerry West, and legend. God rest his soul. But where was I going? Oh, sorry. But the last 48 hours, though, besides that news today, nothing really today, because the focus should all be on Jerry West. But and remembering him. But you've seen a lot more of this still in the media in the last 48 hours, since the Dan Hurley news about, man, where does LeBron go from here? And a lot of people, even all the national pundits now, these are all the same people 2 weeks ago who were telling you JJ Redick was the guy for the job. It was a done deal. And then, bam, all of a sudden it's Dan Hurley. So what the hell do these people really know anyways? That's kind of what I'm starting to think. And this is why I've done the way I've done this the last month, calling it LeBron's last dance. And I broke down all the evidence of the past where he said out of his mouth multiple times. He did it when he came back to Cleveland from Miami the first time, and he's done a lot of those same signs from since he went to LA to now. And I showed that on my show. Go back and watch it. It's called LeBron's Last Dance. And some of the other ones I put, and I did 3 episodes on it with all the evidence, and I showed it. And here we are again. You're seeing a lot of the same patterns. And so I think a lot of this, and this is why I've done it this way, like I said, because this is how you get more of a clear view. You have to look at it and investigate it yourself, which is kind of like a lot of things in the world nowadays, we're being honest. People got to do their own information and search and do their own research and figure out for themselves, because there's so many different opinions. The 2 top reporters in the NBA, Shams Charania and Adrian Wojnarowski, are at like a Cold War right now. One's saying this, the other one's saying that. Now Shams is taking shots at him on the Pat McAfee show. So what does that tell you when the 2 top reporters, right, are beefing in a way? They're conflicting reports, and they're going back and forth, jabbing at each other. And now people are questioning, was Woj working for Dan Hurley and the Lakers or more for Dan Hurley than the Lakers? Right? Was he trying to help Dan Hurley get a pay raise? I think both can be true. I think Woj was the mouthpiece for the Lakers. I think the Lakers when the Lakers came out a week ago on that Thursday, my reaction to that Dan Hurley news was it was them taking back their franchise, saying, this is our franchise, LeBron, not yours. That's honestly what I thought. And I still believe that, because I just don't see where this goes. I mean, I think they would like to keep LeBron because he generates a lot of revenue and money, but this isn't going anywhere, right? And I don't think LeBron wants to be there anymore. I just don't see why he would, unless it really is just about getting as much money as he can on the way out. And I like LA. I can play with my son here, and I'll just sail off in the sunset. Man, you're in the loaded Western Conference. on that team, not with no direction, no head coach 2 weeks for the draft, and not only did not have a head coach, there's not even a real candidate right now. The only real candidate, Borrego, he's about to sign with the Cavs. And so I don't get it. Where do they go? They have no direction. So what does LeBron do about all this, right? And I'm sticking to what I said all along. I think there's a good chance he comes back to the Cleveland. I really do. And yesterday, a prominent, reporter put out there, Scoop Robinson mentioned the same thing about, you know what? I think it's starting to heat up a little bit more, that there's a good chance LeBron could be leaving this off in a couple weeks. Maybe he should go back east to Philly or Cleveland. Now, if LeBron leaves, where does he go? You've heard Phoenix, you heard Philly. I think Philly's always been a pipe dream. LeBron and Dan Morey would never be on the same franchise together. Let's just get that straight. That's never going to happen. The Phoenix Suns, I mean, they could trade Beal for LeBron, but I don't think the Lakers would want to do that deal. And I don't see LeBron wanting to team up with KD or going to Phoenix, to be honest with you. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but I just don't see that. Cleveland makes the most sense. You're back in the Eastern Conference. You're back at your franchise that you created, that you helped elevate. It's the homecoming part 2. You had the whole fan base amped up again. It'd be the biggest story, one of the biggest stories in sports again. And you have a chance. The Cavs are the 20th pick. You could justify taking Bronny the 20s, and not only that, taking him to Cleveland. Right? People wouldn't care as much here because it would just people in Cleveland would just be excited about the story. Right? We would just be excited about the story, and we want him home. And if it gets LeBron back, to hell with it. So, because LeBron really helps the Cleveland economy, I'll tell you that. But, I mean, you can't do it in LA in the teens. But I think if you took Bronny in the 20s, and plus because it's home, it's the Cavs, it wouldn't matter. Right? And I think I still think the Cavs give LeBron everything he wants. They can give him. Now, maybe from a money standpoint, you have to do a sign and trade, maybe take a little less, and the Cavs will probably have to maybe trade Garland back to LA or something. If I'm LA, I'd want that because I get a young player finally. But, he'll have to do a sign and trade, but he still gets the contract, right? He still gets his son in Cleveland. He's back home. He has control in the franchise. Like I mentioned on the show, one of his best friends, Brandon Weems, is the assistant GM of the Cavs, who, by the way, I find this interesting too. This is yesterday. Sorry, you might have to zoom in a little bit, but LeBron and Brandon Weems have been together this past weekend. And I get they're friends. Maybe they take trips every year in the summer together, right? And that's Randy Mims on the left. There's LeBron in the middle. There's Brandon Weems on the right. This is yesterday on Brandon Weems' Instagram story. And he posted another one. They were together I think it was like Friday too, I think it was, or Saturday. But for a couple of days, they were with each other. It seems like, or maybe it was a day, but they've been together recently. And he was sitting next to LeBron at Bronny's Pro Day in LA, for the Clutch Sports Pro Day. Why do I find that interesting? Because, I mean, Brandon Williams is the assistant GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the team he's an assistant GM for needs a head coach. They're actively searching for a head coach, and he's out in somewhere on vacation with LeBron. Why? You know what I mean? Like, don't you think the assistant GM would be in the building every day helping Kobe Altman figure out who we should hire as the head coach? Why is he with LeBron? I have a reason maybe why. I'll keep it to myself. I'll let you guys, some of you guys probably may be thinking the same thing. But why is he with LeBron and not back in Cleveland trying to help find a head coach? I mean, they interviewed, this was posted yesterday. They interviewed James Borrego yesterday in Cleveland. Maybe this was over the weekend. He just reposted it. You know what I mean? But my whole point is they've been together recently. Why? You know what I mean? It just seems kind of suspicious. It just seems kind of like, man, is there something really brewing here? You know, is this really going to happen? You see this report here at the end. Perhaps the odds are increasing of LeBron leaving the West Coast behind, so a team up would happen elsewhere. The dude walked into the game in Cleveland back in May, showed up at the stadium that night, and Dan Gilbert's guest seats. Come on, man. I just don't. I'm still going to say, last time I gave my prediction, I said 51-49 is coming back. After this stuff this week, I'm going to say 55-45. He's coming back. I've increased a little bit. I don't ever like to say for sure because some people I do trust still say he's going back to LA. But I got to trust my gut on this one for right now. For right now, I have the ability and right to change my opinion if I see upon new evidence. I'm willing to change my opinion based on everything I've seen from the past of how LeBron operates, which I showed in the show, the stuff I've seen happen in LA recently, the state of everything now, just the current state of everything now with the teams and where everything's set up and what LeBron's done in the last month, going to the game and stuff like that, and the Weems connection and everything. And I think where the Cavs are positioned, Donovan coming back, and you have LeBron in the mix, they can definitely compete for a championship coming out of the East. I just think it's all lined up for them to come home. I really do. So that's my take on all this. I know I rambled there for a little bit. I had a lot I need to get out. Oh, excuse me. I had a lot I need to get out about it, though, because, I've been sitting back for a week with all that Dane Hurley stuff going on. I've been scanning the news every day and kind of keeping my opinion to myself. So that's my opinion right now. I really do think it's 2 weeks from the draft, so it's going to start heating up here in the next couple weeks, so folks. So Cavs fans, buckle up. NBA fans, buckle up, because it's about to get real interesting here in the next 2 weeks. It could get real ugly in LA, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets ugly in LA. Just leave it at that, because I do know one thing, and one of the guys LeBron responded when LeBron put out that tweet the other night. It was from a gentleman, 73-9 in the live, Cuffs the legend, right? He's actually a close friend of LeBron's, talks to him pretty consistently, lives down in North Carolina. And I've heard of Cuffs before. And but just from his perspective, was when he's writing on his Twitter, and just from some of the things I've seen and heard, I don't think LeBron really likes his front office anymore. I don't know if he ever really has. I mean, Carcino for Life on YouTube for a while is pretty plugged in. He's got some connections. He's reported for a while, for 2 years now. I've heard him say it, that that Ramesses, Rob Pelinka, and LeBron, they just don't really mesh. It's so Genie's kind of like the one that just keeps it all going. But there's a lot of dynamics in that element. I just think it's kind of wore itself out. It could get real ugly here in the next 2 weeks between the two. So we'll see what happens. But I think it could be really exciting for Cavs fans. And obviously you've heard Jimmy Butler to the Cavs as well. That could be possibly if LeBron doesn't come back. I think Brandon Ingram's also another possibility, which I think still elevates them and still makes them better either way. So we'll see what happens. But obviously the LeBron piece, that's the big one everybody's excited about, because it's LeBron James back in Cleveland. And that's where he belongs. Like, he don't belong in LA. He belongs back home. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But that's all I got for you guys today. Love all you guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Please leave a comment below. Please leave a comment below in today's video. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. Go.